Have you ever imagined yourself facing your ultimate fear while attending a summer camp? Imagine, in the quiet of the night, mysterious footsteps echoing from the deep woods, or a strange gaze watching you from the darkness. Today, I will tell you 4 true horror stories about Boy Scout summer camp, where seemingly happy memories turned into unforgettable hauntings. Stay until the end of the video, because the last story may make you think twice about sleeping alone. Story 1. Footsteps in the dark. Our team had been camping for a few days in a remote forest, an old park known for its vast, dense forests. The campsite was on the edge of a vast, unexplored forest, which had always been the perfect setting for our scouting adventure. It was late summer 2003, warm during the day, but the nights in the forest turned cold and creepy. It was around 8:30 on a Saturday night when we set out on a night hike with Scoutmaster Davis. The forest at night was a different world, an impenetrable labyrinth of shadows and silence, punctuated only by the occasional snap of a twig underfoot. The air was thick with a chilling unease as we followed Scoutmaster Davis on our hike. The trees, gnarled and ancient, loomed over us like dark sentinels, their twisted branches stretching out to form eerie silhouettes against the dim sky. Our flashlights cast erratic beams, slicing through the inky darkness and creating jagged patterns on the forest floor. With each step we took, the woods seemed to close in tighter, the claustrophobic feeling growing more intense. The deeper we ventured, the more unsettling the forest became. An oppressive darkness hung over us, a tangible weight that pressed down with every step. My friend Justin and I tried to mask our anxiety with nervous laughter, but the sound felt forced, hollow, swallowed up by the encroaching darkness. The game Scoutmaster Davis was playing, pretending we were lost, took on a sinister edge as the sound of heavy, deliberate footsteps began to echo behind us. Each rhythmic thud seemed to follow our every move, an invisible stalker in the shadows. Despite Davis's reassurances that making noise would keep predators at bay, the footsteps grew louder, more distinct, as if a hidden presence was drawing closer. My heart pounded with a relentless rhythm, matching the unsettling cadence of the footsteps. The beam of my flashlight seemed to falter, casting long, wavering shadows that danced and writhed with a life of their own, amplifying the growing dread that settled over us like a thick fog. When we finally returned to the campsite, the oppressive darkness seemed to engulf us even more. The campfire's light offered a fragile shield against the encroaching gloom, its flickering flames casting restless shadows that swayed and danced with malevolent intent. The woods beyond the firelight were a churning sea of darkness, and as footsteps began to circle the perimeter of our campsite, panic surged through the group. The atmosphere was charged with fear, and even the normally composed scoutmasters wore expressions of thinly veiled anxiety. The sudden sharp report of the rifle, fired by Assistant Scoutmaster Roberts, shattered the silence with a deafening crack. The sound reverberated through the trees, a violent burst of noise that sliced through the night's oppressive quiet. The footsteps ceased abruptly, leaving an eerie, unsettling silence in their wake. The forest seemed to hold its breath, the darkness pressing in around us. As the night wore on, the campfire's weak glow offered little comfort, and I lay awake in my sleeping bag, my mind racing with the unsettling feeling that something or someone was lurking just beyond the firelight's reach. My sleep was restless, haunted by the unnerving knowledge that the shadows held secrets best left undiscovered. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for the best stories and exclusive content. Hit that button and stay tuned for more great videos. Join us now and never miss a moment of the action. Story 2. The cold embrace of the river. Our campsite on the Arkansas River was a peaceful sight during the day, but as the sun sank below the horizon, the scene transformed into another world of dread. The moon hung in the sky like a ghostly sentinel, casting a cold, silvery light over the restless water. The river, usually a living ribbon, now appeared as a dark, undulating expanse, its surface broken only by occasional ripples that seemed to whisper secrets into the night. I was sweltering in my sleeping bag, drenched in sweat from the day's strenuous activities. As the temperature plummeted, the cold air outside felt like a slap against my overheated skin. I decided to venture outside for some solace, hoping to find relief from the stifling heat. The cold penetrated my thin shirt, making me shiver as I approached the riverbank, where the eerie silence of the night was occasionally broken by the distant murmur of running water. The scene before me was nothing short of a nightmare. There, standing like a ghost in the middle of the river, was Dalton. The moonlight cast an eerie light on the water, illuminating him in a ghostly paleness. He was waist deep in the icy water, his bare skin slippery with ice. The cold mist rising from the river seemed to cling to him, enveloping him in a ghostly shroud. It was as if the river had transformed into a living entity, reaching out to claim him. My heart pounded in my chest, a primal drumbeat of fear that matched the eerie atmosphere. Dalton's expression was one of blankness, his eyes staring ahead as if trapped in a trance. The sight of him standing there, disoriented and exposed, the nature of the river seemed to conspire against us, its cold embrace a stark contrast to the warm glow of the campfire. "Dalton?" we called, my voice trembling with fear and urgency. The sound seemed to pierce the oppressive silence, and for a moment he remained motionless, a ghost in the moonlight. When he finally responded, his movements were frantic and disjointed, as if he were awakening from a deep, unsettling dream. His rush back to shore was desperate, a frantic dance against the icy water. As I wrapped him in a towel, his body trembled violently, not just from the cold, but from a confusion as profound as mine. He stammered that he had no memory of how he had drifted down the river, and his disorientation only deepened the chilling unease that had settled over us. The riverbank, once a peaceful haven, had become a stage for our darkest fears. The night seemed to stretch on forever, each moment haunted by the specter of what might have been. As I lay in my tent, the image of Dalton standing in the cold, eerie river haunted my mind, a stark reminder of the thin line between safety and disaster. The murmur of the water and the ghostly moonlight made for a terrifying lullaby, ensuring that sleep would remain a distant, elusive refuge. Story 3. The Horror of the Walkie-Talkie. The October night was supposed to be a normal camping trip, but the woods quickly turned into a nightmarish scene. My tent, nestled among the trees, felt small and fragile against the spreading darkness. The night was filled with the usual sounds of crickets and rustling leaves, but something was wrong. A sense of unease gnawing at my senses. The disturbance began when I heard a strange, rhythmic breathing coming from my backpack. The sound was out of place and made my skin crawl. As I rummaged through my bag, my fingers brushed against something cold and metallic. A walkie-talkie I didn't recognize. When I turned it on, the device crackled and a deep, distorted voice spoke, sending a chill down my spine. "I'm watching you, kid," the voice said, calm and terrifyingly menacing. Fear mounted as the voice continued, insisting that it was just outside your tent. The tent fabric began to press inward, as if something or someone was pushing against it. My heart raced as I screamed, the sound piercing the oppressive silence of the night. The tent fabric felt like a flimsy barrier against the horror outside. Scout leaders rushed into the tent, their flashlights piercing the darkness as they tried to make sense of the chaos. I showed them my walkie-talkie, my hands shaking uncontrollably. They took it as a joke at first, but I knew the voice was too sinister, too real. Fear permeated every corner of the campsite, and despite their reassurances, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The rest of the night was a blur of anxiety and sleeplessness. The usual quiet of the camp was replaced by a pervasive sense of dread, and even the next day's activities could not dispel the lingering fear. The walkie-talkies were confiscated, but the emotional scars remained, marking the end of what was supposed to be an exciting adventure. Story 4. Stranger in the Woods or Campsite. Once a place of camaraderie and adventure, had transformed into a scene of horror under the cover of night. The campfire cast a warm glow that barely touched the edges of the surrounding darkness. The shadows of the trees stretched and twisted, and the crackling of the fire was a thin comfort against the encroaching gloom. The night grew darker as we began to hear footsteps around the campfire. The sound was muffled but clear, a heavy step that seemed to move with purpose. The campfire's light barely penetrated the surrounding darkness, making it impossible to see beyond the tree line. Anxiety hung in the air, palpable and thick. As the footsteps continued, an uneasy tension settled over the group. The scoutmasters exchanged anxious glances, their faces pale in the firelight, when Assistant Scoutmaster Roberts picked up his rifle and fired a shot into the air. The sound was deafening, a sharp, piercing noise that shattered the night. The footsteps stopped abruptly, leaving an uncomfortable silence that seemed to amplify the crackling of the fire. The night seemed endless, filled with the echoes of gunfire and the oppressive darkness. Every rustle of leaves and snap of branches sent me into a panic. The flickering glow of the campfire did nothing to dispel the feeling of being watched, and sleep came reluctantly, haunted by a lingering sense of menace. In the morning, the discovery of stolen items and holes in the tent confirmed our worst fears. The invasion of privacy and the strange events of the night left us all shaken. The fear of someone lurking in the shadows turned a simple camping trip into a deeply unsettling experience, one that left emotional scars and shattered our sense of safety in the wilderness. If you're a fan of true horror stories, you've come to the right place. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for chilling tales that will leave you breathless. Hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update that will get your heart pumping. Join our community of thrill seekers and dive into the darkness with us.